Part 1. Stoicism originated in Athens in the early 3rd century BC with Zeno of Citium. As a merchant shipwrecked in Athens, Zeno was impressed by Greek philosophers and began studying under Crates the Cynic. He established his own school, the Stoipoikal or painted porch, which gave Stoicism its name. Zeno taught that virtue alone brings happiness and external events are morally indifferent. Through reason, one can gain mastery over desires and live according to nature. He authored over 100 books expounding on logic, physics, and ethics. Zeno emphasized self-discipline and service to humanity. Chrysippus succeeded Zeno as head of the Stoic school around 208 BC. He significantly developed Stoic logic and physics, establishing logic as a formal discipline. Chrysippus outlined a deterministic universe governed by an active reason called logos or fire. He taught the soul is material yet survives the body. Chrysippus advocated developing virtues like courage, justice, and temperance through training judgments and desires. He emphasized reason's role in achieving ataraxia, or freedom from disturbance. Chrysippus wrote around 700 books himself, though few survive. He established Stoicism's reputation as a systematic philosophy. Cleanthes succeeded Chrysippus and led the Stoic school until 232 BC. He emphasized virtue, duty, and living according to nature through reason. Cleanthes promoted physical training and encouraged meditation on death to reduce fear of death and desire for pleasures. He composed the famous hymn to Zeus articulating Stoic theological views. In the 1st century BC, Stoicism became popular in Rome. Panaetius of Rhodes introduced Stoic ethics to Romans, softening some doctrines to appeal more to civic duties. His student Posidonius further spread Stoicism's popularity. Posidonius taught astronomy and wrote widely on scientific and philosophical topics. Seneca the Younger was a prominent 1st century AD Roman Stoic philosopher, statesman, and tutor to Nero. In his voluminous writings, Seneca explored applying Stoic ethics to everyday life. He counseled developing courage in the face of adversity and detachment from wealth and fame. Seneca advocated using present time constructively. Epictetus, who lived c. AD 55 to 135, was a slave who later taught Stoicism in Rome. Due to his disability, he wrote no works himself, but his discourses were compiled by his student Arrian in the Enchiridion. Epictetus taught individuals have control only over thoughts and actions, not external events. He emphasized using adverse circumstances as philosophical exercises. Musonius Rufus, c. 30 100 AD, was another important Stoic teacher in Rome. He taught equality between men and women and promoted marriage, virtue, and duty. Musonius believed philosophy should be accessible to all and took no fees from his students. He greatly influenced later Roman Stoics like Epictetus and the Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Part 2. In the 2nd century AD, Stoicism experienced a revival as a philosophy for daily life. One of its most famous proponents was Emperor Marcus Aurelius, reigning from 161 to 180 AD. He wrote the Meditations, a personal diary of Stoic reflections on virtue, duty, and controlling one's judgments. Aurelius strove to live according to reason and nature amid his imperial responsibilities. Another influential Stoic teacher was Sextus of Chaeronea, who lived c. 160 to 220 AD. He wrote voluminously on logic and natural philosophy from a Stoic perspective. Sextus emphasized reason's role in assenting only to clear and distinct impressions. He promoted investigating all sides of an argument to avoid hasty conclusions. In the 3rd century AD, Stoicism continued developing in new directions. One innovation was the distinction between early, middle, and late Stoa by Diogenes Laertius for categorizing different emphases over time. Stoicism also incorporated more Platonic and peripatetic ideas as it syncretized with other schools. An important figure was Hierocles, who lived c. 100 AD. He authored the treatise on duties, expounding Stoic ethics. Hierocles introduced the analogy of concentric circles to illustrate virtue as extending benevolence outward from oneself to family, community, and all humanity. His work influenced later Neoplatonists and early Christians. Another prominent Stoic philosopher was Cleomedes, who lived c. 1st century AD. He wrote on the circular motions of the celestial bodies from a Stoic perspective. Cleomedes sought to reconcile Stoic physics and astronomy with observations, promoting scientific investigation through reason. Stoicism continued developing new branches into late antiquity. Nemesius of Emesa, c. 4th century AD, wrote on the nature of man, integrating Stoicism with Christianity. He discussed the soul's immortality and virtues. Stoic ideas were also incorporated into the medical writings of Galen in the 2nd century AD. One of the last major Stoic philosophers was Hierocles of Alexandria, who lived in the 2nd century AD. He authored several works expounding Stoic logic, physics, and ethics. Hierocles wrote a commentary on Aratus Phenomena applying Stoic philosophy to astronomy and theology. He emphasized reason's role in achieving virtue and inner peace. Part 3. Stoicism had a profound legacy that endured after the fall of Rome. Its influence can be seen in many religious and philosophical traditions. Early Christians appropriated Stoic ideas of virtue, duty, and divine providence. Stoic writings were preserved through Christian copyists in monasteries. In the Islamic Golden Age, many Greek and Roman texts were translated into Arabic, including works by Stoic philosophers. Stoic logic and natural philosophy were studied and developed further by Muslim intellectuals like Al-Farabi and Avicenna. Stoic terminology entered Arabic philosophical vocabulary. In Europe during the Middle Ages, the few remaining Stoic texts influenced scholastic philosophers rediscovering classical authors. Figures like Thomas Aquinas incorporated Stoic ideas of natural law and right reason into Christian theology. Stoic ethics of self-mastery also re-emerged in early Renaissance humanism. The Protestant Reformation again drew on Stoicism. Martin Luther and John Calvin emphasized providence and inner spiritual freedom over material things and fortune, in a Stoic vein. Stoicism experienced a full revival in the Renaissance, as its Greek and Latin texts were recovered and translated. Montaigne and Justus Lipsius were instrumental in reviving Stoicism as a philosophy for Renaissance nobility. Their works inspired neo-Stoic movements that emphasized public service, duty, and decorum. Stoicism influenced statesmen and patriots in the Dutch Republic resisting Spanish rule. In the Enlightenment, thinkers like Descartes, Spinoza, and Pascal studied Stoic logic, physics and ethics. Stoic ideas of natural rights and cosmopolitanism influenced revolutionary leaders in America and France. Enlightenment philosophers debated whether determinism or free will better captured Stoic doctrines. Today, modern philosophers and psychologists continue exploring Stoic principles of resilience, responsibility, and finding meaning amid adversity. Contemporary Stoicism draws on its ancient sources while adapting to modern life. The Stoic way of life remains a perennially relevant philosophy of virtue, character, and living. Was impressed by Greek philosophers and began studying under Crates the Cynic. He established his own school, the Stoipoikal or painted porch, which gave Stoicism its name. Zeno taught that virtue alone brings happiness and external events are morally indifferent. Through reason, one can gain mastery over desires and live according to nature.